Hi guys, I'm right now in Spain and I have very interesting news. The first news is that jcuba.com, which is my social network, it's growing. We opened a Mooji group. I'm just about to open a sadhguru group and I think I'll do this now live. I'm in Spain right now, completely in nature. You can see it here. This is where I am. Down there is a river. You can bathe in it. You can swim in it, which is very cool. And uh, I'm going to open up the Sadhguru group right away. Sadhguru. We can even open up an Osho group, any kind of group. Sadhguru. Sadhguru. We should open up a non-duality group also, I think. So let me open this settings. Let's put it in lifestyle. I think there was a people. Is there people? I don't see economy. Let's put it in lifestyle. It doesn't matter. Sadhguru. Okay, so I open up the Sadhguru group now, and let's open up non-duality. Non-duality. Advaita. Vedanta. Let's open up non-duality. Non-duality. Okay, so we have the non-duality group, and put that also in lifestyle. So yeah, I mean, in one day, 25 subscribers. That's solid. And today I found out that the hashtags of the software that I'm using works really, really, really well. And so I open up a couple of hashtags. We have ASMR, also groups in there and everything. And I'd like to talk about. I see I need to remove some food because some ants are becoming very active here. Ants are super, super smart. How quickly they find to food. It's amazing. Anyway, so I had a no flow today a little bit. It seemed like a no flow day. First of all, my car didn't want to start 7 times, 8 times, and I was like I'm right now. I was completely nature, many, many kilometers away from where people live. I do have my e-bike, which can go 75 kilometers without charge, so that's good. It usually goes 40, depending on how you use it, and so finally the car started. But if it were not to start, I do have that option. And I do have also a charger for the battery, for the car battery. I do have an EcoFlow. I do have in total 700 watts of solar power, 300 on the roof, 400 mobile from EcoFlow company. And I do have, like I said, the battery charger. So if it were the battery, I have the option to load it that way, because I have actually a new battery. So, and then I was sent to a specific workshop. That workshop sent me to another workshop which was closed, and then I talked to a woman in another workshop, which told me to wait in the other workshop. And then I waited there a little bit, and a young guy came out and he said, well, that guy is sick already for a month, so there's no workshop. And then next week there's going to be in Jaca, which is in Aragon in Spain. That's where I was a few hours ago. There's going to be, everything is going to be closed next week. They have like a special holiday week. The whole week is closed. And I was in Carrefour and also in a China shop to buy something against the mouse that found its way into my van for a week already. So I was very, very, very tired, because the mouse was usually active from midnight until 5 a.m. and then it would go to sleep. And I have very sensitive hearing. So anytime I would hear, I would know, okay, I would wake up. And then also, it's funny. I'm just talking about it because it's funny. I enjoy these stories. but it's definitely has that feeling of no flow day where it just things don't click. And so I bought in Carrefour, I bought for 30 euros. I bought a special device which has electromagnetic, but also magnetic, but also ultrasound to get rid of certain bugs. It's harmless for you and for them apparently, and they just want to avoid it. They don't want to be in the near that sound and that those waves. So I was like, okay, let's buy that. Let's get rid of the mouse, and then I don't need it anymore. Then I just put it somewhere. And I put it in my inverter or after my inverter, like a normal 230-volt kind of thing, and it completely burned. Within a minute, the device completely burned and started smelling. And unfortunately, none of the other electricity had a problem, but this one had is built in China. So a lot of times the components in China are really subpar. And this is something that I want to talk about very shortly before I go speaking about, Mooji and the social network and everything again, is that I learned something super, super, super important. And that is if you have cheap components with an electric appliances, you should never, ever leave them in an active circuit. Meaning, for example, if you leave the house, you better switch off all the fuses or remove the appliances from the circuit, because you wouldn't believe if there's a fault in the electric circuit. And I didn't know this most of my life. If there's a tiny fluctuation or fault in the electric circuit, cheap appliances can very, 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 very quickly start a fire. If you're not in the house, if you cannot remove it instantly, it can very, very quickly create a fire. And that's how a lot of houses burn down. So that's my advice, is usually unplug all of the appliances. If you leave for a week, always switch off the fuses completely. Even the fridge, if you can, unless you have a freezer and a lot of water would come out or something. Of course, these appliances are usually made in order not to burn, but it depends where they have been constructed, what kind of components they have. If they have high quality components, usually like from Germany or something, then and they're not produced and just designed in Germany, but produced in China, they're literally like produced in industrial, high quality component setting. Uh, then it's okay. Um, Now, I just wanted to get this out there because I was surprised how many components in my van actually burned and would have created a problem. So anytime I leave the van, I switch off the inverter and everything else. Even I have a kill switch from the battery. Because I live in the van, and if that van would burn down, it would be the end of this lifestyle. Um, and I love this lifestyle. I absolutely enjoy it. A lot of people come to me and be like, he's especially Americans. He's like living in a van. Like, come on, like let's get him some money or something. No, I purposefully chose this lifestyle. I love it. It's not always the best, but the contact with nature and the solitude in nature makes good for everything else that would be not so good. For example, the water, you have to constantly like do stuff with the water. The old water, the old, the cassette, you have to remove that. I don't have a fridge. I don't really have a fridge in my van. I use my Starlink, so I don't have enough juice for also running a separate electric fridge, and those kind of things. But then it's definitely more dirty. While I shower every 2 or 3 days, you just sweat more because you're more with nature, you're more in the sun. I have solar panels, so I cannot stand in the shadow, all day long because I need to have that power. So there's a lot of drawbacks also. and sometimes I smell. So then again, you have things like showering outside, which is amazing. Like showering outside in a van setting in nature where there's absolutely nobody is amazing. And I'll tell you something else, which is because I'm highly sensitive to sleeping in feng shui. Sleeping in the van in nature in absolute solitude, like where I am right now, unless you're afraid, I'm not afraid, but uh, is the best energetic sleep that you can have. I've slept in so many houses and Airbnbs, especially Airbnbs. I've slept in so many Airbnbs and apartments, and there is a lot of negative energy. For example, in the US, it's called like projects, where you have like this huge um, uh, in German or in Czech, it has a different word. I don't know what's so called in Spanish. It's basically like the projects in a sense, like it's just a whole bunch of people living in the city in those apartments, and it's just completely full of Wi-Fi, electromagnetic frequency, and it just completely messes up your system. And I remember, because I said I'm highly sensitive, I remember there was a woman once that I visited in a city in I'm hearing a plane. In a city uh, that I felt very strange about that apartment. I immediately needed to open all windows. It wasn't an apartment with apartments in the city. It's very rare that you can open all the windows, that it has like an energy flow where all the energy is cleared. She didn't have that, which most don't. And I put immediately candles in the middle of the apartment. It was just an intuitive thing, and I felt dark energy. And the whole night I was holding her in a kind of like a sadhguru would maybe do that as well, in a kind of like an kundalini awakening position. We didn't have intimacy, but it was energetic intimacy, but it was more like a tantric session before I knew what tantra was. And she was burning the whole night. Her whole body was burning with energy. So I gave her a lot of prana, a lot of activation. And she confessed to me when I felt that energy and I communicated it to her that in the apartment next door, there was a fire like a year before, and 3 people died in that fire. Um, so I was actually feeling that dark energy without seeing it very clearly. I didn't have like images of people getting burned or something like that, but or dying in the fire. But I felt very dark energy, and she said to me, "Yes, there was this going on." And so, and when you're in nature, especially when you're on a flat surface, pretty low, without much water or rock formation below you, that's the best sleep ever. It's such a good sleep, it's insane. It's literally the best sleep you can ever have. And I refuse almost to go back into an Airbnb. It doesn't matter if it's a mansion, which is a huge luxurious mansion, or a nice little house. They usually have bad energy in there, and a lot of people rotate through those Airbnbs as well. So all that energy gets picked up. And it took me, and I think this is one of the huge benefits of van life for me, the last 26 months that I'm doing this. I'm constantly van lifing basically the last 26 months. And sometimes I took an Airbnb just to change it up. Is that literally all of these places, this is what I learned, have this bad energy in them. And it was a fantastic learning experience. And I don't know if you've noticed, like when you drink water and you drink different kinds of water, like different brands, it tastes different. And not only does it taste different, but there's some, and my mom has the same problem. There's some water that you drink, you feel like vomiting. You don't even want to drink it. And then there's other waters, brands, which you just absolutely love and you just want to drink more. And I have just one right here. And this why I'm saying this, because it's the same thing with those places. Um, this one, for example, is called Lunaris. And Lunaris is a spring or a water source. It's in Monasterio de Piedra, which is in the basically in the Aragon region, in the southern Aragon region. I think it's southern Aragon. It's in a Parque Nacional, and they it's a beautiful, beautiful place. They have a huge. They changed a hotel. They changed a monastery into a hotel, and the nature surrounding it. Oh my god! I mean the nature, you have to really explore mainland Spain to see the nature, because if you just pass, Costa del Sol, Almeria, and you're gonna vomit unless you like that, and unless you're British and you like that with your fish and chips. But the rest, if you're in nature in Spain, there's so many. The Parques Naturales, they're amazing, absolutely amazing. So this one is from one of those, and it's not too far from here actually, and I think I passed it already, and I bought this, and it's just lovely water, and the same with the energy, depending where you draw, where you are at, it has a different energy, and you just feel like. And there was, for example, I was on the road, and I slept next to a stone church, completely made out of stone, but it was more like a chapel, I think it's called. It's like a tiny church, and it was completely made of stone, and probably there was a cemetery there in the past, I don't know. I had the absolute worst kind of nightmares you wouldn't believe. And so, you remember the movie Poltergeist with Steven Spielberg, right? When they had the house on the cemetery? That stuff is no joke, guys. This is literally no joke. What I'm trying to say is, the people who are sensitive to these energies, to the feng shui, and maybe even spirits and these things, they can literally like see or feel this stuff. I just get nightmares, like, and I can't sleep. And it's exciting because as the time goes on, I'm learning where my best place is, and it has something to do also with letting go of fear. And here comes the thing with Mooji. As you become aware of the self and abide in the self, automatically fear starts to drop off, because as you're not identified with the body, or less and less, then the fear automatically drops off, because the fear is only created within the body, not within the self. And so as you lose as you lose the fear, you automatically start to do things which held you in the emotional prison of the fear. So, for example, you constantly do this because you are fearful in as an underlying kind of current within the identified self. And that can be a constant current that never stops, but it's very much unconscious. And as you become aware of the self, and it's a challenge to rest, abide as the self more and more and more and more and more and more. And I'm going to be the first one to say, the mind likes to play games. But as I can 100% say that one of the huge benefits, you could say, the self doesn't need benefits, you could say, but the life becomes better, absolutely, is because as you drop the fear, you start to do things that you really want to do, that are really your most natural vibration. It's actually what I remember in one of my first guided meditations. I called it always your most natural vibration. Letting go is actually your most natural vibration, and then you start to do things. And 6 years ago, when I had enough fear still in the root chakra, I wasn't able to do campervanning alone like this. And often I drive without even thinking where I'm going to be. I just drive, and then at some point I'm like tired, or thinking, let's find a place, and now look where I'll go. It's very random, and that wasn't possible before. So as I let go the fears through some kind of vipassana and crying out all stuff and trauma, the decision for the camper van and then traveling like this came just by itself. And I'm one of very, 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 very few people who are actually traveling alone. There's not that much people traveling alone, actually almost none. I've met 2 or 3 people on my whole travel that travel alone. Most people are partners, guy and girl, and most of them are older. It's also kind of an expensive hobby. Um, but that what I'm trying to say is it's an unusual lifestyle that wasn't possible without the effects of abiding in the self. And it wasn't like a planned thing, just like the tantra massages that I did with women wasn't a really planned thing. It was more like the intuition that came into my heart that said you should do this. And this was the synchronicities which led me to have this camper van were amazing. It was literally meant to be like this. The synchronicities of finding the van, of having a good price. The woman needed to let it go because she was divorcing her husband, and she was ready to just close the deal very quickly. It was, and there were at that time, that was COVID time. There were no camper vans to be found, because I bought that one in Germany and sent it to Czech Republic, where I registered it, and there was literally no camper van to be found because during COVID time, everybody wanted to have it. But I was lucky, let's just say, and the synchronicity was there. And the woman was very sad of letting it go. She didn't even use it much. And I said, "You have to see it this way. You're opening up a whole new life, a whole new opportunity for me." And I have to say that's an absolute fact. The only thing I don't want to say sad about, but the thing that I miss a lot is my tantra massages. I haven't I've done very, very few tantra massages, maybe 6 and 7 in total in the last 26 months. Um 7, 8, something like this. But I would love to do it every second day like I used to. But I have other things. I have the nature and all of this stuff. So, and and then this morning, a friend of mine asked me, what would enhance, say, enhance your life the most? What is one thing that would improve it, enhance it the most? And without looking at it deeper, it was very clear to me it's a woman. Whether it's one or two women doesn't matter, but definitely the female energy in the travels that I'm doing, that would completely change it, the improve it a lot. Um, and I do enjoy it the way it is, but that was kind of like that intuitive, fast answer without thinking. And it is true because I literally enjoy everything that I'm doing right now. There isn't much that would improve it, but that literally a woman on my side that would improve it a lot. And this is I'm talking also from experience, so it's not something I have in my head. My experience is that anytime I was with a woman that I like, the experiences of it was just so much better. Um, but I'm not gonna say I don't like it the way it is. So, and then I decided, okay, and this is something interesting. You're gonna find this interesting because it comes together with awakening and abiding in the self and how I see things a little bit different than I used to. I'm gonna explain it. Mooji is in a situation where I said there's 3 energies. One is survival, procreation, and the third is the self, consciousness. And you cannot deny survival and procreation. Literally every organism has that. You have that as well. All of your energies in the body, all of those energies are in the direction of survival and procreation. And you cannot deny those energies. You can try, you can become ascetic, but you're actually suppressing that. And that's the opposite of libido empowerment. That's libido suppression. And you see, Mooji lives a lifestyle of libido empowerment. He has better survival in the commune that he lives in because food is taken care of. They're cooking for him. They're cooking fantastic, I'm sure. Plus, he has, I don't know if he still wants that at his age, but he has sexual experiences because so the kind of the survival, the procreation instinct, and he has at least one child that I know of. So he has, I think his son died, but he has a daughter. So that procreation thing has been already taken care of, and that further impulse of procreation is being taken care of by his concubines or whatever girls that are around there, and we know enough of those stories. So those are kind of like taken care of, and then when he abides in the self and has a lot of peace, plus he does his satsangs to me is not abiding in the self, by the way, so that's more like a cope mechanism by someone who doesn't want to stay in the self. I mean, if I were to do 3 satsangs per day or 2 satsangs per day or constantly satsangs per day, then it's not abiding in the self. You're doing the opposite of abiding in the self. So Ramana was abiding in the self. So I'm saying there you can differentiate between these things. And then I realized, like, I was feeling worse and worse in terms of my body, and I realized why, because I'm suppressing my libido. I'm in libido suppression because I'm denying myself the female essence, the female energy. I'm basically saying, this woman is vaccinated, this woman is like that, I don't want her in my blah blah blah. And so I was denying myself that. And then I realized that it's not really how Mooji says that it is. He says it because I have to be careful now how I'm going to phrase this. Maybe I will say it and then rephrase it if I don't feel it's correct. He's sitting in the perfect position where those two energies of survival and procreation are taken care of, which then makes, and then plus he does his satsangs. So talking about abiding in the self like Ramana is easy to say and easy to do because he's not doing that much of it. You could say it like this. And then I realized that basically every person that lives an ascetic lifestyle where they libido suppress, they're actually not joyful. They're not enjoying life. They're not truly enjoying life. And I believe that that goes for pretty much everyone. So, even like those gurus. So, what I'm saying is, how about a completely different approach? The approach that I'm doing right now is a rebranding. It starts with J Cuba. J Cuba is my new name. So, that's the rebranding. And I'm going to design that brand for absolute libido empowerment, joy and sexuality, and female contact with women with that female energy. Because I know also the Tantra, I know what it has, these effects of. And then as that is being taken care of, and I'm doing also abiding in the self, then basically all 3 important energies, if we simplify it, are taken care of. So your mind is not overengaged. You have female energy around you. You have libido empowerment. You are enjoying that energy. And then you have everything together. And I think this is something that is actually at the very core of a misunderstanding of spirituality and the human experience, or the organism experience, the biological experience, is that the people, like the guy who started Bikram yoga, right? He was accused of these sexual, harassments and stuff like that, maybe even rape. I don't know. And the thing about it is that as you open up your prana, your chi, the more you do that, the more you come into your male masculine joy, the more you feel this energy. And if you are not rooted, you can lose control over that energy, you could say, and it starts to rule your world. But it's the funny thing is, it's healthier than if you were to suppress your energies. And I noticed in people who die very early on in life, they're constantly suppressing those energies. And at a certain point in life, they're just giving up totally. So they're giving, like, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to have joy. I don't want to have sexuality. And then they die very quickly. So what I'm saying is why not, while still being true and honest to your awakening, at the same time allow yourself the libido empowerment of the sacral chakra energy, joy, and sexuality, and enjoy those fruits, but in a kind of a systematic way. And the systematic way is that you're doing libido empowerment. I always said libido empowerment, for people who don't know my content, libido empowerment literally means signaling that you're a resource mover. I don't know if you've heard the term on my channel before, resource mover. If you're a resource mover and you are signaling that you're a resource mover, women are automatically attracted to you, because they this is so funny. Okay, let's make this a huge live stream. Let me explain everything. So, libido empowerment is about enjoying joy and sexuality. And that's literally our core program for every human being, without exception. And a woman is only attracted to men. This is fantastic. It's such a joy to be intelligent, to understand these things also, is on a deep level, is women, when they look at a guy, they unconsciously think, without even knowing it sometimes, they think, what happens if I become pregnant by this guy? This is literally the thought, the underlying unconscious program and thought of the woman when she meets a guy. What would happen if I get pregnant by that guy? And the consequence of becoming pregnant from a guy, which every sexual interaction has that potentiality, and it should have, is what happens? What do I assume, or what do I expect that guy to do? And if the guy is confident, muscular, tall, has resources, has resourcefulness, has the ability to move, is a good driver, has his own big car, all of these things, if that all comes together, then she will say, getting pregnant by this guy is a good decision. And that's actually what makes people very attractive. And a lot of people, men makes very attractive. And a lot of people think about this superficially. There's like, a guy should have, a nice car, dress nice, and possibly have a power position in society, and all of these things, different kind of things, have humor, and blah 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 blah. But it all comes down to what happens when I get pregnant by this guy. And when she has that, unconsciously, that perfect image in her mind when she would get pregnant, are you the guy that can carry her if she's sick? Are you the guy that can carry her and the child if she's sick? Are you the guy who can drive her when she's sick, while pregnant? All of these kind of things. And it just happens in minutes and seconds that program runs. So as you understand this fundamentally, you can reposition yourself. And that's why I'm doing my rebranding. Basically, you can reposition yourself in order to exude and signal that resourcefulness. And as you do that, women automatically become attracted to you and want to be in your vicinity, which results in your higher joy and libido empowerment. So then you will understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. And it literally works like this. And this is what all guys do all of their life. But some do it very intelligently, other not. They do it consciously, some do it unconsciously. And a lot of guys unconsciously self-sabotage by not signaling resource mover ability. And then they wonder why their life is so shitty. because it literally comes all down to that. And if you're a high libido guy, which is a little bit of an energetic thing also, uh, then and you're not surrounded by women, like I'm telling you guys, 100% Mooji cannot sit in a cave. 100%. He's way too high libido and too self-centered. I think he's Aquarius. So he likes to be around people with also. He could not sit in a cave. Mooji is not a cave sitter. Ramana Maharshi, yeah, maybe, but Mooji's not a cave sitter. And so he enjoys that libido empowerment. Mooji does enjoy the libido empowerment 100% without doubt. And why am I saying this? Because I'm trying to show you how this only abiding in the self is actually a dead end. It's not a dead end in the sense like, okay, you're going to sense spaciousness and all of this stuff. But even if you sense the spaciousness and even if you sense this true self, the body that you experience in this lifetime will not transcend. And listen to this, the body you experience in this incarnation will not transcend the need and desire for joy and sexuality. Listen to this very, very carefully. The body, your body that you experience as this incarnation will not, whatever you do, no matter how much you sit in the abide in the self, will never transcend sexuality, the desire for sexuality and joy. And it's not in the abiding in the self is no joy inherent in it. What is inherent to it is the nothingness. But everything that is an isness is not the self. So, meaning that the body will not be happy if you have a dogmatic idea about abiding in the self, because you're actually suppressing the other energies by doing that. And look at the men, just look at the men. Don't care about the women, but look at the men that are coming to Mooji satsangs. Look at them. Look at them. Does any one of them look happy? Number one. Does anybody of them seem like they really enjoy? And third, does anybody of them look like they're full of prana and chi, and they're just exuding vitality? No, because they have a dogmatic idea that abiding as the self leads to some liberation, which it will never do, because there is no liberation. It's only an idea. And you cannot stop thoughts, and you cannot stop the body. So what you're having is basically you're being pulled by three different strings: survival, procreation, consciousness, into one direction. But if you're dogmatic about the idea of abiding as the self, you're actually suppressing the other two energies. That's exactly what monks tried to do in the past when they went to a monastery. And then they started to fuck the other younger boys, because you cannot suppress this energy. It only gets abstracted and it only gets perverted. And so I thought about this for my own life, because as I was abiding in the self, the more I was doing it, the more I realized I'm not really joyful. And then I looked in the past when I was totally in my libido empowerment, and I saw an old video of mine. I saw a video of mine which was 1 year old, and I was super doing libido empowerment, and I was eating meat, and I was training, and I was in my, I don't want to call it masculine energy. I was in my libido empowerment energy. I had a girlfriend, and I was allowing myself also experience with other women. I wasn't sleeping with them, but I was flirting with them. And I noticed that I looked much better, I felt much better, I was healthier, it was just 100% much better than just abiding in the self. And I'm not gonna knock abiding in the self, because knock abiding in the is part of that equation. It's like part of that trinity, you could say. And it brings you a certain type of peace, which the other two things cannot bring you. But if you ignore the other two and have a mind dogmatic idea about abiding in the self, and thereby suppressing the other two energies, you're gonna feel bad. And I think a lot of people don't want to be honest about this as they go the non-duality path, the Advaita Vedanta path, that they're actually not that really happy. I mean, there's moments when there's like, oh, I'm feeling. I mean, if you're in front of 100 people in the satsang, and people go like, oh yeah, I can sense a certain type of freedom and so forth, and then they go home and they're in the worst kind of place ever, mentally, psychologically, energetically. And by the way, the body wants to be in a healed and harmonious state. Mooji has diabetes, I think it's called. A lot of people, I mean, for me, when somebody is sick, especially with a chronic disease, I'm not talking about something acute or you break your leg or something like that, or where you get cancer necessarily or something like that. But cancer is a lot connected with emotions. But um, if you have a chronic disease and you're not getting rid of it, that means you're doing something wrong. Okay, that's very clear. Because as long as you're kind of young still, and the body has some kind of vitality and has the ability to heal itself, unless you're like already 90 or more or something like that, you're doing something wrong. The body, and it's so logical. Like, if your vibration is a good vibration, the body should start to heal itself. So, and abiding in the self should actually give you that necessary akashic kind of information from above, angels talking to you, whatever you want to call it. It gives you the direction you're supposed to go. But when you're coping or uh not looking at truly abiding in the self, but you're using up your time by doing satsangs with people and stuff, then you never come into the situation. In order to heal yourself, you have to commit tremendous amounts of time listening to your body. And abiding in the self is part of that, because it allows you to listen to the body in a detached way. Now, Muji and people like that will come to you and be like, well, you're only halfway there if you care about the body. Guys, let me tell you, when Muji has a health problem, just like Sadhguru or Osho and anyone else, they also go to the doctor. They might wait a little bit more than other people because the fear is not so strong, but they also go to the doctor. Now, let me ask you, if you totally don't care, if you're totally detached from your body, from your physical, why would you go to the doctor? You're fine with dying. Just like when Ramana had these kind of things that were, eating away on his leg, he didn't care. So you have to be very careful in taking these words by these gurus like Mooji to be truly honest. Because if you're looking at it a very detailed way and very honest way, you see that it's not actually true. It sounds great in the satsang, but day-to-day life is very different. He's fucking, some people that are, women that are close to him. He is enjoying the food that they're cooking. He has constantly people around him. He's constantly occupied with other things other than abiding in the self. He even said it like once. I remember there was a satsang where he said, if I were to uh to not have the sangha, what would I do? Where would I go? I mean, come on. Would Ramana ever say that? Maybe he would. We don't know what he was really saying, or we don't have recordings of that. But what I'm trying to say is, try to see everything as whole, more wholesome. What are all the perspectives and what is maybe being excluded and what is really there? And I'll tell you, if you have your eyes open, it's all about, for an organism, it's all about survival, procreation. That's literally your whole body, and awareness of the self. And if you don't configure your life to appease to all of these three energies, you're not really going to be happy. Um, and actually, depression, when people talk about depression, what is depression? Depression. Something is being pressed down. So, what is being pressed down? Ask yourself that. It's very simple. Your libido energy, your kundalini energy, the energy that goes from the tension, that goes from the tension upwards. You're suppressing your libido empowerment. That's literally what depression is. If you're fully in your joy and sexuality, there's no room for depression. I 100% am sure about this. Depression. Something is being pressed down. Very, very simple. And I've actually never been prone to, and I never had depression. But the last couple of weeks, I was like, could that be kind of something like a depression? What is actually a depression? And then I realized that in the last weeks, I've been depressing my libido a lot. And I mean, Osho, on purpose, was doing these exercises like active meditation, all of these stuff. Osho wasn't stupid in that way. Osho was very smart in that way. And he was stupid in other ways, but so coming full circle right now, the idea with J Cuba is a rebranding towards libido empowerment, creating my own social network also. We have 25 people registered already. At some point, there's going to be more. There's already some women registered, and there's going to be more. And I'm creating a brand which has kind of a resource mover brand. It's more like a spiritual teacher and ASMR creator, but I'm creating authority where women are like, hey, I'm enjoying his ASMR. I'm enjoying his spiritual teaching. He has some kind of authority in terms of like he knows what he's talking about. And then they'll start to find me attractive from that point of view, especially if that's their kind of vibration. And by having more attention in this way, and possibly someone seeing me and saying, hey, I really like his van life lifestyle, I would love to join him, then instantly the experience that I have is by that tantric energy of woman and man in whatever constellation that we're in is enhanced. And from my experience, having done over 1,000 tantra massages, is the sacral chakra energy, the heart chakra energy, the third eye energy, all of them can be amazing. It can be a spiritual relationship, it can be a heart-based relationship, it can be a sacral relationship, or any combination of those three. And then you're living in a completely different energy flow. It's completely different. And I'm looking forward to it. And this is, here's something super interesting that a lot of people don't know, is when is a child the most happy? aren't they already very happy if you promise your child or a child that they'll get the ice cream in 5 minutes or in 30 minutes? And the child be like, oh my God, I'm getting the ice cream. So there's an excitement towards that. And that comes back to Bashar with follow your highest excitement or follow your highest joy, is by allowing yourself the potentiality to experience the libido empowerment of future libido empowerment, you're actually already entering in a state of higher vibration, excitement, and joy, because you are assuming, but here's that it's coming. But here's an interesting thing: if you have had a lot of negative experiences, and this is where self sabotage comes in. I mean, this is a golden pill right now. This is absolute gold pill. This stream. You come into the situation where you're self-sabotaging because you're assuming that that potential future joy will actually have a negative impact on you, so you're fearful of that experience. And if you do that too often, and if you experience that too often, you're actually subconsciously, unconsciously blocking yourself from experiencing libido empowerment because you're fearful of the outcome. It's super interesting. And people who are chronically unsuccessful, depressed, and just miserable in life are usually fearful of expressing joy and or sexuality. Might be from childhood, might be from later on, it doesn't matter. So you have to reprogram yourself, you could say, to allow yourself and believe. It's the belief system that also Bashar talks about, to believe that you can actually have a positive outcome from following your highest joy and highest, libido empowerment. So, and I was gonna say another thing right with that as well. I'll tell you something super, super interesting. Abiding in the self and living without a strategic plan is going to probably make things worse from you, not better. Not worse in terms of like mind and psychologically, but in terms of like your physicality that you experience in this incarnation. You're basically setting yourself up for the Ramana animals to eat on your leg. Now, I don't think that's very nice towards, thinking of your body as kind of like a temple that's been given to you for this incarnation. Unless you transcend, I mean, but that's, in my view, there's no point in trying. This is something like Sadhguru said a little bit. It just comes by itself. Don't try to enlighten. Just leave it to the universe, whether you enlighten or not. Just leave it out. Just forget about enlightenment completely. Because maybe there is something like enlightenment, for sure there is, but you're not going to influence it from within you. It's just going to it's going to be something that happens. And unless that happens, forcefully trying to enlighten, what you're actually doing, the people who are trying to enlighten are actually the people who are coping. And they're coping their libido suppression. What they really want is massive joy and massive sexuality in their respective energy fields. So it could be in the form of love, heart energy, third eye energy, like the tantric energies. And I tell you, if I look at the 46 years that I've been experiencing this incarnation, the highest joy, the most interesting time, maybe that's just my soul plan, but was the tantra time, the tantra massages that I was doing. That was an amazing, beautiful time. And while I love nature like this, It's extremely boring. Like watching nature like that, even if I'm abiding in the self and just like being aware with nature, it's just massively boring. And then, of course, to whom it is boring and such. And uh like Rupert Spear would say, you have to overcome the boredom and all of this stuff. It's not really true. I'm sorry to say, but who's trying to overcome what? It's all literally not true. The male masculine modus operandi is survive and fuck women. I'm gonna say it like it is. It's super simple. And if you deny yourself that, you're gonna have a shitty time. If you allow yourself the full expression of that, you're gonna have a fucking good time. But you have to be smart about it. If you're very smart about it and you go with it strategically, then you're gonna have a blast in this incarnation with all the possibilities there are. And I'm not talking about what is it called? Hedonism. I'm not talking about the hedonism where you blindly, do everything and don't think about it. No, that's not what I mean. It's the allowing of that energy. You're allowing that energy to flow and to exude throughout your whole body, and you flow like a dance with the universe to what is, but you're not denying yourself. You're instrumentalizing your opportunities, your potential. So, meaning if I create my own social network and thousands of women register and some people want to get to know me and they're literally like, hey, I want to take a flight into you. Is it okay to have sex with multiple people without being in love before settling down as a man? Of course. But don't ask me, ask yourself. Because there's an intuition about this. And abiding in the self has a massive advantage. The abiding in the self has one massive advantage, that it gives you your own inner intuitive heart intuition, which tells you what you're supposed to do. And by the way, uh, all of these recognitions, which Mooji would call methods, and he would say, let it go. But all of these recognitions that I've told you about now, including toxic meta framing in my other videos and all of this stuff, libido empowerment, all of this stuff, comes actually from abiding in the self, because I was just super quiet, just being aware, la la la. And suddenly these things start to trickle down and start to become aware of them. So I'm becoming aware of super deep, insane, simple, actually, dynamics of how your existence really works. That once understood, unlock basically any interaction, any experience you have in this lifetime. Super, 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 super simple. And then, of course, for everyone specifically, individually, there is a soul plan. Every soul, every organism has a soul plan, meaning there is a way that they go through life with the parameters that they receive during birth, with the soul they've incarnated with the parents they receive, those parameters, the soul plan as to what they will struggle with, what they need to overcome, what is the karma, what is the vasana. All of these things are the soul plan, and you cannot fight the soul plan. That's of course true. What if you had to show hope of relationship to the girl just to have sex with her because you live in a very conservative society in a third world country? Um, well, you shouldn't lie, because lie creates a negative karma. And I noticed that women tremendously appreciate directness and honesty. It doesn't mean that it will always go well, but there's no benefit in just having sex by a false energy. If you want to experience the opposite of false energy sex, learn Tantra. learn tantra in a very open, honest setting where there's little thought, just experiencing the energies, and you will see that there's a whole new side to sacred sexuality that is totally far outside, these kind of manipulative tactics that you're speaking about. Um, and I know this from 1,000 sessions, tantric sessions, and before I was having normal sex, and then I was basically changing it into sacred sex. I can definitely tell you this is two completely different worlds. They're totally apart. How do you know your soul plan? The easiest way, I mean, I do soul plan readings, but the easiest way to know your soul plan is observe yourself. And it's very funny to also see it in other people. When you talk to other people, notice that as well. Their eyes light up, they become bigger. So when you speak to them and then they speak about something they really enjoy, they light up, the energy rises. They're like, they open up like this, and for example, you talk to someone about accounting, and there's not their excitement. They're gonna be like, and then you speak about, say, playing the piano, and they'll start to light up. The eyes open. The speech gets more excited. Uh, then you know the direction of the soul plan. It's a very simple way to see how the soul plan is, when you speak about their soul plan, it's being activated and translates immediately into higher energy. So observe yourself and others, and that's the simplest way. I mean, then there's the interview that I usually do, is 30 to 60 minutes, where I ask questions and I connect with the other person, and I start to read their soul plan. But I haven't done a soul plan reading for a while. I started, I think, last year in November, and I did around 30, 40 readings, and I realized for me it's a little bit exhausting. So I stopped doing that. So jcuba.com is my new brand, is my new website. It's a social network also. Join. We have tons of clubs in there, opening up more and more groups. I already have some friends in there. Going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be interesting to see how a social network works away from the idea of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Instagram, blah blah blah, Twitter, to kind of like a guy coming from the spiritual side, and bringing totally different energy into it, and making his name the brand of the social network. A little bit, it's not too far the idea from actually Donald Trump, when I think Trump Social, I think it's called. It's actually the same thing. He's using his name as a brand for a social network. The problem with Trump is he is very conservative, and he brings only conservative people in there. I want to bring my fans in there, which are just a little bit different, of course. What is your thought on why people develop cuckold fantasy or wife sharing fetish? Um, it's a good question. Let me think. I know why. Because it creates the desire for competition, and competition creates testosterone, which creates excitement. So you are in effect, while and I think there's also something about wanting to see your woman as a slut. I don't have to see why this is psychologically, but it's I think it has something to do with competition. That a woman that is desired by other guys naturally creates that kind of fight instinct in you to also want her more. I think that's a big part of it. Uh, so you want that woman more by seeing her wanting other guys as well. And I think it's also there's also something else in it, I think, is that men would love a woman that is very free in her sexuality. And I think that a lot of guys, uh, a lot of women, the fantasy of the man of the woman being sexually much more open, in a lot of ways, becomes a reality in that just as much as if, say, he has a certain fantasy about his wife, but his wife never dresses like that or never behaves like that. But if she suddenly does, then that fantasy starts to be fulfilled and it starts to become very exciting for the ego. And I think the same goes for those fantasies you were talking about, because suddenly you realize that there's more possibilities sexually than there were before. Because quite honestly, if you don't necessarily do sacred sex or something like that, sex does have something boring to it. It has something repetitive to it, unless you do it in a sacred sexual tantric kind of way. So so that makes people want to explore and see them more wild, let's say. Um because other it's also not like it's not like you have a wife and immediately want to do that with the wife. It's not like the first day you want to see her by another guy. No, you want to be together with her for a while and then you have that fantasy, which means that it's not your first intention, which means that something is becoming boring, something is becoming repetitive. And I think that's one of the reasons also. So I think that you have those two major reasons. Um and it has a lot to do, like I said, the first part with competition. Pretty sure about that. Because you don't want to see your if you have that fantasy, you don't want to see your wife being taken by, a tiny, thin guy. You like her to have that special cool guy that, you know, that she finds extremely attractive, that you cannot be or whatever, because that creates much, much more competition. Because the other thing is like, actually, I think as a guy, you would feel insulted in a way. um, yeah. Anyway, stupid topic. So that's it for now. Join jcuba.com. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll see where it goes. Um, we'll see what happens. Okay, bye bye.